Hello and welcome back to the Peak Season Podcast, where we make all your STR dreams come true. How's it going, Tyler?
Doing good, Luke. How about yourself?
Yeah, doing pretty well. Today we've got a doozy of an episode. We're going to be talking about guest complaints, when good guests go bad, how to handle it, sharing some stories, and just sort of getting into what all that looks like from over 500 stays between the two of us. 99% of our guests are amazing, and then there's that 1% that are going to make us question our life choices.
Yeah, I think one of the things here to realize is when you're in this business, you're gonna have things that pop up. You're gonna have difficult guests, and that could be anything from a guest complaining to, they trashed your place. Let's hope that doesn't happen, but
Right.
it does happen and can happen. So we're just gonna kind of talk through some of the experiences we've had and how we've handled them, and the lessons that we took away from those experiences to maybe help you out and things to consider to these scenarios from happening. So, Luke, why don't you kick us off? Give us an example of something you can think of.
Sure. Man, there's so many of them.
Well, that's not good.
Man, it's
You've been hosting for a long
no,
time.
I mean, I've got
With
about
multiple properties.
five or six that pop into mind, but I'll tell one that happened recently and it actually had sort of a funny conclusion. Occasionally you get a guest that is just trying to get a refund, or they're trying to find things where they can extract, a refund or some sort of money back out of you. And I had a guest recently, 3 or 4 months ago, that came in, and my cleaner had just left. Everything was fine. I had pictures of everything. They came in. They said, "Well, it looks like there's been an animal in here." And I was like, "An animal?" And they're like, "Yeah, there's stuff knocked over, and we found these droppings over here." And they gave me this picture of these tiny little droppings that were like in the middle of the floor. And I was like, "Well, I have a picture of the clean, and that wasn't there." We went through the whole stay. I took a little bit off the cleaning fee just to kind of show goodwill. They were fine after that. A couple other little nitpicky things, but it's a little bit needy. And we get through the whole stay, and then after they check out, they bring it up again. And at this point I'm like, well, I'm not giving you anything else. Like, I already refunded you some. Like, this is not my style. And I really felt like I was being conned, right? Because the whole deck was stacked up against their case, and it, even down to the little piece of droppings they found, it looked like it was planted there. And it just so happens that the next person that was going to be in the cabin was one of my handy people. And totally unprompted, he was like, "Hey, did you know about this spot by your basement door where this animal chewed its way in?" And I was like, "Oh no, I should have trusted the guest."
Oh, no. What kind of animal was it?
The only thing we can think of is like a little squirrel type critter or something.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe it got in when the cleaner was there and then it chewed its way out. We couldn't really tell exactly what happened. But in that short window between when the cleaner left, when the guest arrived, it got in there, knocked some stuff over,
I'll be dang.
left a little pile, chewed its way out. And the guest was right the entire time.
Wow.
Granted, they were a little bit needy about it, but I just thought for sure that it was completely impossible. So, that maybe that's more of a story of don't always think it's the bad guest. And sometimes, it could just be,
Things can
it could be
happen.
something that we missed. And in that case, I don't know what I would have done to not, to prevent that. Right. But
Right. Yeah. And,
how about you, Tyler?
and just to set that tone, like where Luke's property is, like it is heavily wooded. So, creatures are out there for sure. I know you have pest prevention as well, but things can happen.
Yeah, I mean, we do all the things. Pest prevention. I mean, we run an extremely clean property. We always get great reviews for cleanliness, and I really think that it got in when the cleaner was there, because we have that attached garage beneath the property.
Yeah.
And I think the garage door was open. It came in, and then it couldn't get out, so it starts freaking out, and then it eventually chewed its way out.
I mean, that's a good story right there.
Yeah, I've got more. We'll get there.
I think one that I remember, happened over the summer. I guess actually it was over the fall. And it was here in northern Michigan, again, waterfront property on Lake Michigan. There's 2 seasons that are a pain in the butt. And that is mayfly season, which obviously is in that May, June area, and then gnat season, which can happen in September into October. And these guests were from out of state. And I say that because historically, my property books a large percentage, about 80 to 85% are actual Michiganders that stay at my property. And honestly, I don't get as many complaints from Michigan people as I do from out of state people. This, I had, and this was a lesson learned from the year prior. Oh, my cleaners were like, man, there's gnats everywhere, yada, yada. So I'm like, okay, what should I do? So first thing I did was I used Chat GPT and just to kind of educate and ask Chat GPT to pretend like they were a super host, you have gnats in the area, provide some information about it, and then your preventative measures that you're taking place. So I've been using that and I just go in and I schedule it, to run basically from September through October. So the message was received by these guests, no communication during the stay whatsoever. And they left me a 5-star review, but then in the feedback, they had just said that they were extremely disappointed that the gnats were so bad that they had to put like coasters over their cups. They had to immediately throw out the food and take it to the trash after every meal, and that they didn't feel that they had received the value of what they paid due to that experience. So, I thank them for the feedback. I did, in a professional way, call out that I wish they would have let me know during their stay, not post the stay, but at that point, I didn't feel like I needed to refund them anything. Again, if the guests would have complained during the stay, maybe shared pictures, like I think I would have been a little bit more lenient. So, to say it was this terrible guest is, I don't think that's accurate, right? But it was more of just, I think, just, thinking about that now, I'm like, okay, do I need to tweak my message even further? The thing that I also have to take in consideration is, what about the guests that stayed before and the guests that stayed immediately after? Because these September and October, I'm booked 100%. And I didn't have guests on either end complain about it. So that's the other thing. I mean, had that been a consistent complaint, maybe I would have done something differently for those guests. But, at that point, I just took the feedback and I'm just looking at, is there other messages I can do, other things that I can put in place. As of right now, it's over now, so I have some time to think a little bit more about it. But that's probably the most recent one that I had.
I mean, in that case, I don't think there's anything you can really do. I mean, it's not like you
Yeah.
can fog form or whatever. They're rolling off the lake. Every single waterfront property is going to get that. I mean,
Yeah.
the best thing you can do is provide. One of the things I'll do is like provide extra coffee filters because I like to put it over top of a cup
Mm-hmm.
when
Yep.
I'm there and it's mayfly season. So if you're having a glass of wine or whatever, you put a coffee filter over it and that keeps
Yeah.
the bugs out of your
And
drink.
we have stacks of those. And then
Right.
we have the like lighted things and we have them in the bathrooms, in the kitchen, in multiple places in the kitchen. We have little jars with the vinegar and cider and, so, I mean, they're in there, like they're getting caught, but you're not going to catch each and every gnat.
Yeah, I had a guest one time that they didn't like that I had a owner's closet and that they couldn't see what was in there. Like they thought there was like a person living in there or something.
Mm.
And I mean, it's disclosed. I mean, I think every rental has an owner's closet. And then they also, once after they checked out, they reported me to Airbnb for having a camera at my door.
Do you outline that though?
And it's in the signed rental agreement. But Airbnb, it was a scary situation because they suspended all my listings for like 36 hours while they did their investigation.
Oh, goodness. How
Because
long
like
ago was this?
this was
Was this last
this was
year?
a few years ago. Yeah, this is when I was first starting out. Yeah, but I mean, I had the signed rental agreement. I had the messaging that said there's a camera at the front door. We have one camera, exactly one, before this reason that looks at the front door, and it's so we can see when the cleaners come and go. And we tell them
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
And it was no big deal, but it's not a great feeling when Airbnb suspends your accounts and says we're doing an investigation based on a guest complaint.
Yeah. Well,
And
and I think that's a good lesson for our listeners. Again, whether you're new or seasoned, I'd say probably if you're more new, maybe you don't know this, but if you have cameras, hey, no cameras inside. That's an absolute no. Any cameras in the exterior must be outlined in your listing and its intent and purpose. So if you don't and you're trying to be sneaky, that is a no. And to your point, Luke, like I guarantee the first thing they did was look at your listing when you last updated it to make sure you didn't just hurry up and go in there and try
yep,
to put it in last minute, because they will kick you off the platform. And I think like most of us, although we love direct bookings and a lot of us are going that way, the reality is Airbnb accounts for probably 75% of most people's revenue in this business as of right now.
Yep, 100%. Yeah. Other than that, I've just had the occasional issue with cleanliness. I've had two guests that arrived to water damage, but they were both absolutely amazing the whole time. But I mean, I think we can kind of get now into like how do we start to recover from these things. We've told a couple funny stories, I guess, but when you have a guest that just has an issue that's being a little bit needy, I try to keep all the communication on platform if I can, but I really find that sometimes it helps to just call it.
Yeah.
Because you can't convey tone through a message as well. I think sometimes they might think you're being dismissive, or they, that they're just going to be more receptive to a phone conversation than anything else. So that's my first thing is I just get them on the phone, completely own whatever the issue is, call them, apologize, offer to make it right, offer to compensate them in some way. And usually that's not going to be a direct monetary compensation for me. It's going to be a, let me buy you some pizza. Why don't you go out here and get ice cream with your family and send me the bill while the cleaner comes in and takes care of it. Just something like that.
Yeah, I would say very similar for me. I am going to give another story because that's exactly how I did this one. It was in December over Christmas. Had a group of people coming in to ski over Christmas, and the propane was out, and therefore my furnace went out. And this was at the A-frame, so I was still pretty new to hosting. Actually, it was like 3 hours before they were getting there. And then I had my little Nest thing that kind of went off, and it said, hey, like your temperatures are dangerously cold. And so that's what led to this. So I had my plumber come out because I'm like, the furnace, that's what I thought. And then my plumber's like, well, you're out of propane. That's why. So then I had to call propane company, schedule an emergency call out. They did come out. Again, luckily I had like a few hours to deal with this. So, but it was still, by the time that was all done, there was only like an hour left before they were checking in or could check in. And so as soon as I knew this, I did reach out to them on the platform, and then I did call them. To your point, like I'm like, I'm so sorry. Here's what happens. I just want to be honest. I said it's probably going to be a couple more hours before it gets warm enough, for your comfort. And so I called Torch Lake and got them a gift card, and I told them to go have dinner and some drinks on me before they went to the property. And they were 100% cool with that. They were like, thanks so much for letting us know things happen, appreciate the honesty. And thanks for the gift card.
Yeah. I've had that happen too, where you've got it on a keep it full program with the propane company, and for whatever reason they do not keep it full, and that's not cool. Actually, when it happened to me, the guests were amazing. They were the only people from Canada I've ever hosted, and they were just like, oh yeah, it's toasty warm in here, because they had the fire going, and like they didn't even seem to care. But we got it taken care of right away. But just those things can happen.
Well, and I have a guest checking in today, and this morning my generator notification went off, and it said generators off, and it said low fuel. So I sent a message to the generator people because I looked at the history, and I wasn't quite sure, but then I immediately called the propane company because my tank at the cabin's only 75 gallon. Like it is small. So like it does go out soon, but I was just at the property 2 weeks ago and it was at 60%. But we did lose power twice since then for a couple hours. So I'm like, shoot, maybe it is out. Now my furnace at this cabin is electric. So I'm not worried about the heat, but still you never know.
So have you ever had a guest that was like outright angry?
I'm trying to think. I honestly can't tell you I've had anybody that was outright angry. No. I mean, again, some people would say things via message, but they didn't seem like overly upset of anything. So I guess knock on wood, I haven't really had that. Let's hear about your story, Luke. I guarantee you got one.
Yeah, I mean, I've had guests that I guess that we had one guest that was very, very nitpicky about the cleaning and wasn't happy with that. I mean, this is over 400 stays.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I've had one that was just irate about the cleanliness after, 100 plus 5-star cleaning reviews.
Mm-hmm.
But she was pretty upset until I got her on the phone. And then we started talking about it. And I just, you fall on your sword immediately, say, hey, that's not the standard we try to maintain. And you say, how can I make it?
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I'm already rewashing all of your sheets. I'm like, well, all the sheets just got washed, but okay, you can wash the sheets. That's fine.
Yeah.
But you can do that. I mean, if that makes you feel better, that's fine. That's not how I worded it, of course, but
Sure.
yeah, she was there for like a girls' weekend or something. So I said, are you, are you guys doing wineries or what's your favorite thing? And she said, mainly we're hanging out at the house. We're going to go check out this brewery. They were going to go to beers down the road. And I said, okay, cool. Well, why don't you grab a few drinks on me and send me the check when it's all over? And actually, she never even did it. But we turned it in from a talk where she was really upset and we talked about the issue. I completely owned it, and that allowed us to move past it. And then we started talking about what they're doing for this weekend and good things, right? And I was telling them how amazing it was of a place to go, and just really we started talking more about that. So the tone of the call changed. And she ended up, I think she just didn't leave a review. I didn't get a bad review out of it.
No
So
review is better than a bad review.
yeah, yeah.
And I think an important part there, Luke, is what you said. You address it immediately and get it over with, right? But then it's move on and then it's building rapport, right? And
Mhm.
just it can be the small talk, but then you're not just Luke, host of, X property. You're Luke, a person who cared enough to call, cared enough to listen, and cared enough to like hear why I'm angry and then talk to me like a regular person. So I think that's really important. If a guest is super angry, I mean, I would do the exact same thing. Again, I still think I would follow up a conversation and put it in Airbnb so there's some documentation. But I would immediately call if there was something that I was aware of that I can handle, but it's going to be a while, or I have an extremely upset guest that we have to, as hosts, own things. You At the end of the day, it's again a business. It's hospitality and customer service driven. Yeah, the guests may just be complaining, but you got to hear them out. You got to show that gratitude for them choosing to stay at your property, and also just I guess I'm trying to think of the word, but just so the appreciation and gratitude, but then just the what's the word I'm looking for, Luke?
Like ownership.
Yeah, owner. Thank you.
Yeah,
Ownership. Yeah, just
yeah.
ownership of, hey,
And I think one of the things you hit on there is really important, and that's going back to the platform and memorializing your phone conversation. So I'm going to go back immediately and say, hey, thanks for taking the time to talk on the phone. Go through what you kind of talked about without making it too obvious, but so that an Airbnb customer service representative who comes to it can look at it later and be like, okay, cool. And if that wasn't what happened, then the guest will probably come back and get on record and say, no, I'm still mad, right?
yep,
And right when I do that is when I go a few steps further and I disable the rest of my automated messaging for that guest.
that's
And
a
I
good
and I
point.
drive the bus from then on. So I'm talking about, I don't want my auto message to go out the next morning like everything was great and we
Hope
didn't
you're
talk the night
experiencing a
before.
5-star stay.
Right.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
might not want to ask them for a review depending on how the rest of the stay goes.
Right.
All that. But either way, it's the tone is going to change from what my normal messaging is. So at
Mhm.
that point, if there's an issue on that first day and I'm talking to them the night they check in and we're fixing issues, I go in right away and cancel all those auto messages, and I make sure that I'm personally messaging, and we can do better than our auto messages, and that's when we can salvage the entire stay by providing that extra level of service and that extra personalization.
I was just thinking about my message because that's what I say. I start out that next way. I hope you're experiencing a 5-star stay, right? And I think I was thinking in my head while you were talking about that. I think my tone would just be, "Hey, I just wanted to check in. I hope things are going well. Just want to let you know I'm here for you. I hope you have a fantastic day. Blah blah blah."
Right.
So yeah, just changing that tone. And the nice thing is with our systems, Luke and I both use Hospitable. I can see all my pending messages that are getting ready to go, and I can just go in and hit delete and just for that guest. And
Yep.
then,
Just takes a second.
yeah, then I'm taking over from there.
Yep.
Good point.
Yeah. So I think we talked pretty well about de-escalating and kind of documenting how that works.
Yeah.
And I think there's a future episode probably to go down about what happens after if you get a bad review.
Hmm.
I think we should talk about that later. But is there anything else that you think we could be doing to recover a stay or to recover the review after there's an issue?
I I think what you said earlier, I think it just depends on how some of this is going to be your gut intuition based on the call you had with them, based on the messages that you're receiving from them. Like if they're not responding to anything, I'm probably not going to remind them to leave me a review. I think the biggest thing you can do is de-escalate as soon as you can, be empathetic, take the ownership, express the gratitude, and be the best host you can be. And also document it so you have it in case something does go awry. I think most people that listen to this podcast or listen to other podcasts or following other groups, like they've seen where hosts have been able to clearly document things where it was almost retaliatory, right? And a retaliatory review can be and should be removed by Airbnb. So and that's why Luke and I follow that is like we're gonna follow up and write all of our stuff in there. And if the guest is like, well, I'm only gonna leave you 5-star review if you refund me for the entire stay and it's the last night of 5 night stay. Wow.
That for the end.
Okay.
But
Well, we're
but
wrapping up. We're
yeah,
almost
yeah. Yeah, we're almost there. One thing I was going to also say in there is if you're in a market where you have access to Instacart and it's easy to do, or if your
Mhm.
cleaner will just do it for you, but you're talking, it's significantly more expensive to have your cleaner run out, when it's an hour round trip for them from where they live. But I have sent just little things via Instacart to guests. One time in Pigeon Forge, a guest had a problem with a hot tub and it was going to take a few hours to get it fixed and reheated, and they were really looking forward to using the tub
Mhm.
that night. So I sent some snacks and a couple board games, told them to keep them. It
Yeah,
was like 25
genius.
bucks. And like, so they got back from dinner and on the doorstep, they had, chocolates and some popcorn and a couple new board games. We have board games, but that wasn't the point.
Yeah.
It was just, I'm sorry. If, and a chance to surprise and show that you care.
Yeah, and I think another point to that, Luke, is as a host, we don't have to spend hundreds of dollars, right? You don't have to give back everything. You don't have to spend, say, $500 is on me for your dinner for your family of 10. It just has to show you care. It doesn't have to be extravagant. I was thinking about that. So in Northern Michigan, don't really have Instacart, but like I have an online grocery service delivery company. Like I was just thinking like, oh, in this situation, I'm going to call that owner. I'm like, man, I'll pay like delivery fee or whatever it is, but can you grab this charcuterie tray and a bottle of wine if it's a small group, or if it's a family group, probably something else. I'm not going to just get wine and charcuterie. To your point, maybe some games or something, but that's a great point, Luke.
We're getting towards the end, so I will share my story about the ultimate nightmare guest who was nitpicky from start to finish. He looked up Airbnb regulations about what can be a bedroom and what can't be, and sent me that
Mm,
because my upstairs bedrooms in the A-frame don't have closets. And he was
mm.
like, "Well, you listed this as a 4-bedroom."
It doesn't have to have a closet.
Yeah, right. It's all clearly pictured, disclosed. We have the
Yeah.
layouts on the description. 3 or 4 nights into the stay, he was mad that the hot tub was dirty after they had got into it dirty over and over again. I offered to send my guy out to clean it. He said, "Well, we already changed the water." I was like, "Whoa." Like, okay, man. After the stay was over, he comes at me with like a 3-page thing and starts talking about everything. And I also bought him dinner, by the way, like a very expensive dinner. And he definitely pushed the limits on me buying dinner. Lesson learned.
Yeah.
But after the stay was over, he comes back and lists his manifesto of grievances and says, I think you're about a 4.5 star rating, and 75 bucks a night would get it to 5 stars.
Oh, there you go. Bam.
Screenshot, sent to Airbnb. I never said another word to him. Airbnb said the second he leaves a review, we'll remove it.
Yep. There you
And he
go.
never left a review. But, he put his cards on the table and was trying to extort even more out of me.
Yeah.
And Airbnb had my back.
Yeah.
But Airbnb could see through everything, the chain of events that I truly cared, that I was going above and beyond. And then he was unwise enough to actually say it very explicitly, you know,
Mhm.
this is exactly what's going to happen if this is what it costs for my 5-star review. And that
Right.
violates the terms of service. I hope he got kicked off the platform. I doubt he did.
That the last part of that though too, Luke, is you were talking about that. You asked, show the gratitude, be empathetic, all that, but be timely is probably even more critical than all of these. If a guest messages you on the platform, you better be very timely replying, because if you're not replying to them complaining about something and it's 3, 4 hours or the next day, that's no bueno, people.
Yeah, that we should have probably said that earlier in the episode. Like, I'm calling somebody 30 seconds after they send me an issue. They still have their phone in their hand typing to me, and I'm calling.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Well, I think that wraps up some of our experiences, some of our, recommendations, or, how we've addressed things. Hopefully you found some value in this, and yeah, Luke, close us out.
Yeah, well, thanks for listening. As always, we would appreciate a 5-star review from you, and no, we will not be paying you for it. And take care, everybody. We'll see you on the next one.
See you in the peak season.